That is the White House on this Monday. It is Monday, right? November 10th, 2025. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. All right, the Red Cross says Hamas turned over the body of Israeli soldier Hadar Goldin. He was killed 11 years ago, back in 2014. Hamas says the body was found in a tunnel in Rafah, and it will now be transferred to Israel and their forensics team. Currently, there are 4 remaining bodies of Israeli hostages in Gaza. Let's bring in Dr. G and T to discuss not so much this specific case, obviously, but I know the Israelis are glad to have that soldier's remains back, but really more the peace process, T. Bates, going forward. We know we're out of phase 1, supposedly we're into phase 2, but I haven't seen any plans about phase 2 yet. I don't know what's going on. I do understand this morning that Jared Kushner is over meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu this morning. But once again, everybody's going to be tight-lipped until they figure out what the next move is, because I've got no clue at this point.
Reporting that I've seen on what's happening next. And I say this, and I don't like to use the word, but I think it is accurate. It is a tenuous peace process. Yes, we've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And even the administration has said that there's a lot of work to be done, but it starts, or the journey starts with a couple of steps, and at least we've made those first steps. As for the remaining bodies coming back, just to be honest, I'm not so sure they ever will be fully returned. I don't believe that Hamas knows where all of those bodies are. I think the people were killed indiscriminately and in an inhumane way, and Hamas probably has no idea where all of those bodies are. I pray that they are returned to their loved ones, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I'm sorry, but that's just how I see it, Dr. Gina.
Yeah, this is just heartbreaking for those families.
Yeah.
And, I had opportunity to hear a lot of this up close and personal on my recent trip there to Israel. And I pray for those families. I mean, it's one thing that they lost the family member. It's another thing that they can't even get closure. And I don't buy the whole thing that Hamas is like, oh, we don't know where they are. They knew those bodies were leverage for them, that they were involved in hostage negotiations going forward. I just don't buy it. I think that there's more to this story, because always in times of war, dead prisoners' bodies are always a negotiating point, right? So that they would just lose something that valuable to them in war, I don't know if I buy that, David. I don't know. You know more about this than I do.
No, I think you make actually a really good point about that, especially, and they knew this was important to Israel as well in terms of leverage point to get those bodies back, even more so to the Israeli community. So, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that. Let's get some more insight now with geopolitical strategist, Army veteran, good friend of the show, retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb is with us. Let me ask you, Darren, look, so far the ceasefire is holding. We were mentioning that Jared Kushner is in Israel today meeting with Netanyahu, but we still don't have any details as to what phase 2 is going to look like here. I'm curious how you assess where we are at this point. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Well, I think it's easy to say that nobody really knows what we are right now, because they're just doing this in a 24-hour increments. In some cases, they're being surprised. In some cases, they're not. But ultimately, the issue comes down to the fact that Hamas is, well, they're going to use this to their advantage, of course. Any issues regarding the ceasefire, which is, yes, holding, but it's certainly not perfectly holding. And it's really up to Israel to make the decision on whether or not they wanted to keep going forward with operations in Gaza based on Hamas's actions, which have shown anything but a desire to establish peace. But now Hamas is actually working harder to try to ingratiate themselves into future governance of Gaza. So I think that's what they're really focused on, is they're sort of making a show of this recovery of bodies to return to Israel, while planning ahead a future where they're still involved in a post-Gaza war future, which, frankly, would bring us right back to the beginning of where the whole thing started anyways.
Colonel, looking a little bit domestically, a Chicago man reportedly fired on federal agents during an immigration operation. City Alderman Michael Rodriguez accused federal agents of unlawful conduct and said their presence has created chaos in the community. Now, the alleged suspect fired on officers during an enforcement action. I think we're just going to see more of this. I think that the direction this is all heading, with all of the rhetoric put out by the left on all of this, makes people feel justified in such actions. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. There's consequences to the language that's out there right now calling for continued violence, not only in Chicago, but around the nation. But it's interesting that these aldermen and the mayors and the governor have constantly talked about how ICE is creating the problem in Chicago that's existed for a very long time, in which they seem to be totally uninterested until there was a threat or a promise of activating the National Guard to bring them in to do the job that those people won't do in the first place. I would hope the citizens of Illinois in general, but Chicago specifically, look at these aldermen and other political, and I wouldn't call them leaders, but political folks, and held them accountable for the fact that they failed at their job massively. It's not the National Guard's fault or Trump's fault. It's theirs. They own it, every bit of it.
Lieutenant Colonel, let's continue our geopolitical tour of the world in Russia. Reuters is out with this headline, which reads, Russia hits several key Ukraine energy facilities, kills 3 people. In all, Russia launched about 450 drones, 45 missiles. And the fact that it's these key Ukraine energy facilities may make it that much more concerning. It really doesn't look like there's any end in sight to that war, does it?
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't look like it. And as winter gets further and further into the cold, it changes the dynamics a little bit when it comes to the energy wars. And frankly, what Ukraine is suffering under the bombardment of Russia is the same thing it's in some ways trying to do back to Moscow and to Russia in general. One of the differences is that Moscow is trying to get Ukraine to submit by creating a situation where they lack the energy to keep moving forward with production and the war in general. Ukraine is trying to impact Russia's energy infrastructure by trying to basically defund their ability to keep paying for the war in the first place through energy sales. So I'm just going to keep calling this the energy wars. And unfortunately, it's the people on both sides of the border who suffer as a result.
No doubt about it. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, great to have you here. And I guess a happy Veterans Day and just before the big day tomorrow. We thank you for your service to this country.
100%.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Colonel.
All right. Coming up, we all know someone who enjoys a peaceful morning walk. I think we do, don't we? Maybe that's even you, but what benefits outside of that exercise are they actually getting? If we told you it could slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease, would that get you out of your chair to hit the pavement? We're going to have some exciting new developments, but you need to hear it. Back in a moment.
You gonna run away and hide. I'm gonna run right by your side. For you, pretty baby, I'll even die. I'm walking. Yes, indeed.